You ever look at a map and there's just that one spot that, I don't know, just pulls you in, like full of mystery.
Yeah.
Stories of things just vanishing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, today we're diving into one of those places.
Yeah.
And based on the awesome sources you guys sent over, I think you know where we're heading. The Bermuda Triangle.
Exactly. The Bermuda Triangle. Or sometimes people call it the Devil's Triangle.
Right.
And geographically, well, it's a bit fuzzy, isn't it? It's this area in the western North Atlantic. Roughly, you've got Miami, the island of Bermuda, and San Juan in Puerto Rico as the corners.
Okay. Miami, Bermuda, San Juan. That sort of patch of ocean.
But that lack of a really strict boundary, that kind of adds to the whole mystery, maybe.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
And the material we've got for this deep dive is pretty wild. We're talking articles, forum comments, even like YouTube transcripts.
Mm-hmm.
A real mix.
It's fascinating, the sheer range of stuff in there. You've got the old historical accounts, the ones that really kicked off the whole legend.
Mm-hmm.
Then there are personal stories, people worried about flying through there, that kind of thing. Plus, obviously, the scientific explanations people try to find.
And the, let's say, more creative ideas, too.
Oh, yeah. Definitely some imaginative theories floating around in those sources.
So our mission today, as we sort of navigate all this info, see what I did there, is to really try and understand the story.
Right.
Pull out the key bits, look at the evidence, and just help you get a clearer picture. What's real, what's maybe not so real.
Yeah.
We're not pushing any agenda, just exploring what the sources say.
And it's worth saying up front, even the size is debated, right? Some sources say maybe 500,000 square miles.
Okay.
Others go way bigger, like up to 1.5 million square miles. So yeah, pinning down the actual place is tricky from the start.
Huh. A moving target, literally. So this spooky patch of ocean, when did the stories really start? When did it get this reputation?
Well, looking at the sources, it seems like the mid-20th century was really key. There's an early mention in a 1950 Miami Herald piece.
Okay, 1950.
Yeah, by Edward Van Winkle Jones. Other papers picked it up. But then a 1952 article in Fate magazine by George X. Sand. That seems to be the one that really cemented the triangle shape and focused on disappearances after World War II.
Fate magazine. Sounds about right.
So those early stories, maybe not super rigorous, but they laid the groundwork, this idea of a dangerous, defined area.
Fascinating. So, okay, what were some of those specific incidents back then that really caught people's attention? The ones that built the mystery?
There are a few big ones. The Carroll A. Deering, that was 1921. A big schooner found totally abandoned off North Carolina.
Abandoned, just empty.
Empty. Crew gone, no distress call, a classic early case. And you see these themes again and again in the sources. No signals, no wreckage. That's where the wild theories start brewing.
Yeah, you can see why.
Then, probably the most famous one, Flight 19. That was 1945.
Ah, yes, Flight 19. Heard of that.
5 U.S. Navy torpedo bombers on a training mission. They just got completely lost, disoriented.
5 planes.
5. Vanished. Never found. And then, tragically, one of the search planes sent out to find them, a PBM Mariner.
Don't tell me.
It disappeared too, 13 guys on board. Now, one source mentions a tanker saw an explosion around that time and location.
The explosion?
Yeah, and it also notes those Mariner planes, they had a bit of a reputation. History of fuel vapor leaks causing explosions, especially when loaded up for a long search.
Wow. So maybe not so mysterious for the search plane, but still.
Yeah.
5 bombers just gone.
Yeah.
Chilling. Were there others around that time?
Yeah, the late 40s were kind of a bad stretch. British South American Airways lost 2 passenger planes.
2.
The Star Tiger in 48 flying to Bermuda. Then the Star Ariel in 49 heading to Jamaica from Bermuda.
Okay.
And it's mentioned these planes, they were really pushing their limits, flying at the edge of their range, so not much room for error.
Right. Makes sense. Anything else?
There's also Flight NC 16002, December 48, a DC-3 San Juan to Miami.
Okay.
Pilot called in, said they were about 50 miles out, getting landing instructions.
Yeah.
Then silence. Never arrived.
And any clues?
The sources mention that specific plane had a history of electrical problems, battery issues, stuff like that.
Huh. So a cluster of incidents. But the stories go back even further sometimes, don't they? People link older stuff, too.
So absolutely. The USS Cyclops disappearance in 1918 gets pulled in a lot. Huge Navy ship, nearly 300 people on board. Vanished traveling from Barbados to Baltimore. No trace.
1918. Wow.
Then the SS Cotopaxi in 1925, a cargo ship heading to Cuba, disappeared. Although, interestingly, its wreck was found much, much later, off Florida.
Oh, really? So that one's solved then?
Pretty much, yeah. Just sometimes the mystery does get solved eventually. There's also the Connemara IV, lost in a hurricane. And even later, 1963, two Air Force KC-135 tankers collided.
Collided?
Yeah, west of Bermuda. Some early reports made it sound weirder, like two separate crash sites miles apart. But turns out the second site was just seaweed and junk.
Okay, so a collision, not two separate mysteries. But still, it's that pattern, isn't it? The sources keep highlighting the lack of distress calls or just nothing found.
Exactly, that silence, that emptiness.
Yeah.
It just leaves this huge void. And, well, people try to fill that void with explanations.
Which leads us nicely into the theories. Let's start with the more out there ones. What kind of fanciful stuff did the sources mention?
Right, the fanciful theories, as one source puts it. Well, you've got your classic alien abduction scenarios, extraterrestrials just skipping up ships and planes.
Of course. Alien.
Then there's the whole Atlantis connection, the idea that the lost city is down there somewhere.
Or Atlantis, okay.
And maybe it's ancient technology, like powerful energy crystals or, underwater pyramids.
Underwater pyramids, I've heard that one.
Yeah, that they're somehow interfering with equipment or maybe even creating portals, vortices to other dimensions, that kind of thing.
Definitely imaginative. Okay, but what about explanations grounded more in, actual science? Stuff we can potentially measure or observe?
There are quite a few, actually. Compass variations are a big one.
Compasses? How so?
Well, the area is near something called the Agonic Line. It's one of the few places on Earth where a compass needle can point to true geographic north instead of magnetic north.
Oh, right.
So if you're navigating by compass and don't account for that difference correctly, you could end up way off course, especially historically, before GPS and stuff.
Makes sense. Anything else affecting compasses?
Some sources mention underwater volcanoes near Bermuda, possibly creating basalt rock with lots of iron and magnetite that could potentially mess with readings locally.
Interesting.
Though it's also pointed out that old compasses weren't always super reliable anywhere, And sailors use the stars too, but magnetic issues would still be a problem.
Okay, so compass trouble is one possibility. What other natural things could be going on?
The Gulf Stream. It's a really powerful ocean current ripping through that area.
Right, it's strong.
Super strong. So if a plane went down or a ship sank, that current could scatter the wreckage really fast, really wide, makes finding anything incredibly difficult.
Okay, disperses the evidence.
Human error. Can't discount that. Pilots, sailors, people make mistakes, especially under stress, in bad weather, or if equipment fails. The sources mention this repeatedly.
And the weather there can be famously nasty.
Oh, absolutely. It's known for sudden, violent storms. Tropical cyclones can spin up quickly, and you get these intense downdrafts. They call them downbursts.
Downbursts, like sudden winds pushing down.
Exactly, like a microburst you might hear about at an airport, but over the open ocean. Powerful enough to swamp a ship or knock a plane out of the sky really fast, maybe too fast to even send a distress call.
Wow. Yeah.
One source mentions the sinking of the Pride of Baltimore. Not technically in the triangle, I think, but it sank incredibly quickly due to one of these sudden squalls, these downbursts. Shows what they can do.
Okay, weather's a big one.
Yeah.
Then there's that methane theory. That sounds kind of wild too, but maybe scientific.
Yeah, methane hydrates. It's a fascinating theory. The idea is you have these deposits of frozen methane gas on the seabed. If they destabilize, maybe due to seismic activity or temperature changes, they could release huge bubbles of methane gas that rise to the surface. And that gas drastically lowers the density of the water above it. So a ship sailing over that spot could suddenly lose buoyancy.
Lose buoyancy, like it just sinks.
Yeah, sinks incredibly fast, like the bottom drops out. Experiments with models have shown it's physically possible.
Whoa. So the ocean could literally just swallow a ship.
Potentially, yeah. If the conditions were exactly right, the ship would sink and the gas would dissipate, leaving very little trace. Wreckage scattered on the bottom or carried away by currents.
Unsettling, but okay, maybe plausible in some cases. But one source made a really simple point too about just how busy the area is.
That's hugely important and often overlooked in the more sensational accounts. The Bermuda Triangle is a major shipping lane. Tons of boats, tons of planes go through there every single day.
Right. It's like a highway.
Exactly. And organizations like the U.S. Coast Guard, Lloyd's of London, they've looked at the data. And when you factor in that high traffic volume,
Yeah.
the number of disappearances isn't actually statistically out of whack compared to other busy parts of the ocean.
So more traffic just means more accidents happen there, proportionally.
Pretty much. More chances for all those things we talked about. Bad weather, human error, equipment failure, like that DC-3's electrical issues to cause an incident. It might just seem mysterious because of the triangle's reputation.
Correlation, not causation, maybe.
Could be. It starts to paint a picture where maybe it's not uniquely cursed, just busy and occasionally hazardous, like other parts of the ocean.
Right, which fits with some of the debunking efforts mentioned in the sources, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like that guy, Larry Kusch.
Yeah, Larry Kusch did some really important work back in the 70s. He actually went back and checked the original reports, the weather records, all the details for the famous triangle cases.
And what did he find?
He found tons of inaccuracies, exaggerations, cases where a ship supposedly vanished in calm seas, but records showed a massive storm was raging.
Yeah.
Instances where boats reported lost were actually late arriving or even turned up later, but the legend never got corrected. He basically concluded the whole thing was a manufactured mystery.
Manufactured.
Oh.
So sloppy research and maybe some storytelling got mixed in.
That was his argument, sensationalism over facts. He found stories where numbers were inflated, details changed. Even a case of a plane supposedly lost in the triangle that actually crashed near Daytona Beach with witnesses.
No way. So he really poked holes in the legend.
Big time. Showed how a good story can sometimes outrun the truth.
And there was another expert mentioned, Dr. Karl Kruselnicki. Does he agree?
Very much so. Dr. Karl, he's looked at it from a scientific perspective too, and echoes Kusha. Says the loss rate isn't abnormal given the traffic. Points to the same factors. Human error, bad weather. He uses the Coast Guard and Lloyd's data, too.
So the people who've really crunched the numbers seem to say there's nothing supernatural going on.
That's the general scientific consensus, yeah, based on the available evidence. And, thousands of boats and planes cross the area safely every week. That's a pretty strong counterargument to it being some kind of death trap.
Yeah, that's a fair point, but
Ooh.
But the mystery still holds on, doesn't it? People are still fascinated. There must be some lingering weird things, some anomalies that keep it alive.
Oh, for sure. There are still odd bits and pieces that fuel the imagination, like that cargo ship, the Alta. Remember that?
Vaguely. What was the story?
Crew got rescued, ship was abandoned. Then months later, it just washes up, adrift and empty. Nobody knows who might have been using it or why its tracker kept going on and off. That's recent, adds a modern layer of weirdness.
Okay, that is kind of strange.
And people still bring up Columbus, right? How he supposedly reported weird compass readings and strange lights in the sky back in 1492 when he sailed through. Hard to verify, but it's part of the lore.
Columbus, too.
There's even a fringe theory about an ancient asteroid impact messing with local magnetism, but it's out there. And it is a fact that the deepest point in the Atlantic, the Puerto Rico Trench, is right there in the general zone. Plus, lots of weird seabed formations. Doesn't mean anything necessarily, but it adds to the mystique for some.
And what about people online? Those forum comments you mentioned. What are they saying? Still buying into the mystery.
Oh, it's all over the place. You get total believers convinced something paranormal is happening. You get people sharing stories of flying through and nothing happened.
Yeah.
Lots of curiosity, people wanting to go see it. Some genuine fear, too. And definitely folks who think there are still unexplained cases, disappearances, that conventional theories just don't cover.
Like maybe we don't have all the answers yet.
Exactly. That lingering doubt. One person wondered, what if someone vanished while recording video? What would we see? That kind of speculation keeps it going.
And it sounds like Bermuda itself kind of leans into it for tourism.
Totally. You go there, you'll find restaurants called Lost in the Triangle, Bermuda Triangle Swirl Ice Cream.
Seriously. Triangle ice cream.
Yeah. Triangle-themed jewelry. They've definitely embraced the legend. It shows how deep it runs in popular culture, right?
Wow. Okay, so wrapping this deep dive up.
Yeah.
If we had to boil it down, what are the main takeaways from looking at all this stuff about the Bermuda Triangle?
Well, I think the big picture that emerges, especially from the scientific side and the critical investigations like Kush's, is that the whole mystery aspect is likely overstated.
Okay.
Yes, there have been tragedies, ships lost, planes down, but most seem explainable by pretty ordinary, if dangerous, things. Storms, human error, maybe equipment failure, the challenges of navigating that area historically.
Right, the usual suspects, basically.
Pretty much. And crucially, when you look at the sheer amount of traffic, the number of losses isn't statistically crazy compared to other busy ocean areas. It's probably not some unique vortex of doom.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. A clear picture based on the evidence. But
yeah,
here's the final thought I want to leave folks with, the question for you listening. Even with all these logical explanations, Why does this story, this legend of the Bermuda Triangle, still have such a powerful hold on us?
Hmm.
Is it just that we love a good mystery, the drama of a sudden disappearance? Or is there something, I don't know, deeper going on in how we think about the unknown that keeps this mythical section so alive in our heads?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Maybe it taps into that basic human fascination with the unexplained. We want there to be mysteries left in the world.
Yeah, maybe.
Or perhaps it's just the starkness of it gone without a trace. It defies our need for closure, for answers. Whatever it is, the triangle is definitely still a potent symbol of mystery in our culture.
Absolutely. So if you want to dig deeper, listener, maybe look into Flight 19 specifically, or this Cyclops. Check out The Science of Methane Hydrates, or read Kush's work, Explore the Skeptical View, Explore the Believer View, and just, keep thinking critically. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.